This week on Motoring 90.
Anytime I have to stop you in the process of the test, you failed the test. Huh?
The idea of the water is strictly to get the dirt off your tires. A lot of racers think that it's time to sit and smoke the car and lose it somewhere in there, and go ahead, it's your tires, it's your money.
Having a license in this country has got nothing to do with knowing how to drive.
Motoring 90 is brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
Hello, everybody. I just thought I'd go for a nice walk in the country this week. We're in Spartan, Ontario. Nice place to come for a walk. Peaceful, tranquil type setting. But they tell me on Sundays for the past 25 years, this isn't a good place for walking in the country. It's for drag racing. The St. Thomas Dragway is located in the midst of farmland in southwestern Ontario. Now, at first glance, it looks like most other drag strips, but the resemblance ends there. I mean, how many dragways are run by grandmothers? This one is. She's Helen Harvey, and she's 74 years young.
Well, it was 27 years ago in 1962. There was drag racing out at a municipal airport. And some officials came along and wanted to land, and they were racing, so they couldn't land. So they said, that's the end of that. And one of the head fellows in the racing club came to my husband and myself and said, would you be interested in building a track? So we said, well, we don't know anything about drag racing. And they said, well, we have no place to race, and you're in business, Bob. That was my husband. Said, I think it'd be good.
And so it was that the St. Thomas Dragway was born. Helen's husband passed away 5 years ago, and today Helen runs the entire show, along with her son-in-law and daughter Judy, a former nurse who now has a full-time job just keeping up with her mother.
She's great. She's fantastic. I don't know where you can find another mom like her. She never stops. I don't think she's ever missed a day here from 1962 on. Once she had a broken ankle, and she was still here on crutches and had a cast on her foot. But she's here all the time, and she's always pleasant, and if things bother her, you wouldn't know.
Did your life change just a bit? Did it pick up back in the 60s when you married a lady named Judy who had a mother named Helen?
Well, it kind of went haywire when I got into that family, and between the horses and the farm and drag strip, everything just kind of turned from 7 days a week to 8 days a week.
Does anybody want just drinks only? This line, please. Tomatoes from our garden and cucumbers from the garden. Just the little goodies that make the food taste a little better and a little more home-cooked.
We hire people to cook the food. We don't do it unless that somebody doesn't show up, as it was this morning, and my daughter cooked the eggs. We do serve breakfast here, which is unusual for a drag strip. I think we're the only one in Canada that does that, but we do serve a good breakfast. It's ET, which is elapsed time drag racing, and they race for cash and trophies. It's a hobby for people. Some people go out and golf, some go boating on Sunday, some curl in the wintertime. Of course, this isn't a winter sport. It has to have dry pavement. But it's a hobby for these fellows, and they love racing and working on their cars.
.082 reaction time for Wayne, a 1050 at 129.12 mile per hour. Spectator side shuts it down and coasts it through with an 1877.
Everybody seems like family. If we're short of help, people pitch in the food booths, or if we're short of help, someone doesn't show up at the track, someone will help. We have a children's playground. The facilities are very clean. If you like the heat, you can be in the sun. If you like the shade and like it cool like I do, you could be under a shade tree and still enjoy the races. Run lane 6 or 7. If you win, you go right back into the lane. If you lose, you're out for the day. But there is a trophy for the winner and the runner-up.
Basically, I've never really been in it professionally. I've done it with friends, basically out in side roads and stuff like that. But I think my car is fairly fast, but I actually want to come down and see what I can do because I've had friends that have raced before and they've got quick cars, so I want to learn from them to get myself in the better knowing what they do, basically.
Most of the racers, 99% of them, are just unbelievable, everybody tries to help each other, and they're real friendly. And like I say, the wives and the kids are here, and we just have a great time around here.
When you come up into this area, you'll notice back here is a water burnout pad. The idea of the water is strictly to get the dirt off your tires. A lot of racers think that it's time to sit and smoke the car and lose it somewhere in there, and go ahead, it's your tires, it's your money.
We've had Don Garlitz, Connie Coletta, Chris Karamessini, the Crazy Greek, and many, many other big names over the years.
How do you see the future here?
I don't think we're going to change much. We haven't over the years. No, we enjoy a smaller operation, I think. We get to know the people personally, where a big operation, you don't know them and they don't know you.
Our family is kind of, we go kind of haywire from the, you know, when the alarm goes off in the morning and till it's 11 or 12 o'clock at night when we go to bed.
When Motoring 90 returns, a look at laser technology. Test Drive with Graham Fletcher.
By definition, a laser is something that's concentrated, focused, and very powerful. This week on Test Drive, we're looking at the 1990 Plymouth Laser. Now, I have a sneaking suspicion that with the 2-litre engine that's under the hood, this car will match that definition. The Plymouth Laser and sister car Eagle Talon are the initial products of Diamond Star Motors, a 50-50 joint venture company established by Chrysler and Mitsubishi. The Laser is motivated by a turbocharged 2-litre 16-valve twin cam that produces 190 horsepower. This power is put to the pavement through a slick shift in 5-speed with a light progressive clutch. All in all, a well-balanced powertrain that is fun to drive. During our acceleration test, the car turned in times of just over 7 seconds, the only drawback being the amount of torque here at wide open throttle. During the brake test, I found the 4-wheel disc setup too sensitive. It was difficult to modulate, and the rear brakes had a tendency to lock up with anything more than moderate pedal pressure. The combination of a well-balanced suspension setup and 16-inch Eagle GT Plus 4s provide a very stable platform. When pushed through the pylons, the whole setup gave a very good account of itself. However, on the street, the suspension proved to be on the stiff side, making the ride over broken pavement somewhat uncomfortable. The pinch waist and stubby rear end complement the aggressively styled front end very well. What looks like a power bulge in the hood actually accommodates the high part of the cam cover. The only negative note is the pop-up headlights, which as usual destroy the profile when the lights are on. Like the other cars that fall into this class, the Laser is definitely a 2+2, because I'm only 5'10", and I'd have to have the tailgate up to sit upright. The dash is complete and easy to read, but I would have preferred the speedo rather than the secondary gauges to have occupied center stage. The driving position is comfortable and the front seats provide the much needed lateral support. All-round visibility is good with only a minimal blind spot at the left shoulder. This week I don't so much have a peeve as a disappointment. It is that when you accelerate wide open throttle like now, the car pulls too much to the right. It's known as torque steer, and I just found it a little too much for today's modern cars. Anyway, now to the scoreboard and see how I rated the rest of the 1990 Laser. With 190 horses under the hood, the Laser has plenty of head-snapping power. This translates into times of just over 7 seconds to reach the 100k mark. The suspension is very competent, giving the Laser's superior handling characteristics. Unfortunately, the stiff nature does compromise comfort a little. Although the brakes stopped the car in 104 feet, it took a tender foot to avoid lockup. The whole setup is too sensitive, especially when operated at the threshold. Generally very quiet with minimal wind and engine noise apparent, although you can hear the turbo whistle as the power surges. During testing, we averaged 26 miles per gallon, which considering the performance is fairly good. However, more judicious use of the right foot will yield better economy. The Laser is a complete package that offers power and fun with style.
If Chrysler can tame the torque steer, the Laser will be a hot seller that complements their lineup very nicely.
Here in St. Thomas, we're now going to quieten things down just a touch and join our favorite mechanic, Bill Gardiner. Now, Bill told us he wasn't going to be in the garage this week. He mentioned something about going shopping. Let's find out what Bill's up to.
You know, even if you didn't need any parts for your car, coming to a place like this, an auto wrecking yard, is a kind of a sobering experience. It's a good idea to come here once in a while and see the kind of damage that happens to vehicles, and I'll guarantee you'll leave here driving a lot safer and better. But today we're going to have a look through some of these vehicles and see what kind of components are salvageable and usable that you could possibly use to service or maintain your car for many years at a reduced cost. Here's a component that wears out or bends on some cars, the rear axle shaft for a rear-wheel drive car. This is a couple $100 new at a dealership, or you could buy it at a place like this for a quarter of that price. Or if you happen to need both of them or more components for the differential, you could buy the whole differential assembly down here for probably just over the price of one of these shafts, brand new. Here's an example of a part that I quite often come down here for, a wiring harness connector. Just the other day we had a vehicle that would quit if you pulled or wiggled the harness, push it back together, it would run. Now this vehicle's already got the engine removed and they're not interested in a little piece of harness like this. Now if you had to go and buy this, you couldn't buy this individually, you'd have to buy the entire wiring harness, hours of labor to put it in, it's really expensive. Come down to a place like this, you cut this plug off the harness, leave 6 inches of wire, go back to the shop, make your connection away from the plug and tape it carefully, and it's a perfect fix. These connectors are still perfectly serviceable. Now a lot of parts are sold as part of a major assembly. For example, a door is usually kept complete to sell to a body shop, but this door is rusted and a little bit damaged on the outside. They'd probably let you take individual components off it. For example, if you needed an armrest and your car happened to be this color, bang, there you are. You don't have to wait for it to come in at the dealership, have it specially painted with paint and flex agent so it doesn't peel off. There it is, just like original color. That's going to save you some time and a lot of money. Now, as we've showed you today, you can come down to a wrecking yard like this and find a lot of parts, obscure parts you may not have been able to locate elsewhere, and you can probably save a lot of money. But you're going to have to be prepared to get a little bit dirty and do the legwork yourself. You're not going to find a mechanic that's going to come down here and do this for you. Now I found what I came here for, a starter motor and an alternator. And over the next couple of weeks we're going to show you how these parts work to start your car in the cold and keep it running.
Next on Motoring 90, Driving Ambitions.
At the signals, turn left, please. Stop, stop, stop. Stop. You're supposed to wait for that vehicle to make that right turn.
With me now is Joyce Gladwish, and Joyce is not here at the St. Thomas Speedway as a spectator. She is a participant. She's a racer. And Joyce, just tell me how long you've been racing here at the track.
I've been racing since 1960, and I've been racing at St. Thomas Dragway since it opened.
Tell me a little bit about your car and what kind of division you race in.
I race in the ET3 division, or street class, and other drag strips. It's just an ordinary 1986 Oldsmobile, 3.8 liter. It runs, the fastest it's run is 17.48 seconds in the quarter mile.
You are the present champion here.
Yes, I am the street champion in St. Thomas Dragway for 1989, yes.
How fast do you get going?
As I said, 17.48, around 79, 80 miles an hour.
Well, good luck to you, Joyce.
Thank you
and
very
stick around because you're going to like our next item. We've got Steve Grant standing by. And you know, they say there's only 2 things that you can count on in life, death and taxes. Well, Steve says he has one more item to add to that list, taking your driver's test.
When you think of stressful situations, a couple of things come to mind right away. Your first job interview. Or how about that wedding day? Well, here's one that you've probably forgotten all about. The question now is, if you had to, could you pass your driver's test again?
492573. How about there?
Every day, hundreds of drivers pull up to the John Rhodes Examination Center just outside of Toronto, and every day more than half go home in the passenger seat. At the John Rhodes Center, the examination is conducted in a controlled environment. The driver never gets out on the public streets, but yet 50% fail. Well, to find out why, we decided to go for a ride with a potential licensee. Is there one part of your driving you think needs work that might be a problem today?
Parallel parking?
Parallel parking?
Yeah. On your test today, I would like you to obey the rules of the road. Signal each time you turn or change lanes. I will tell you where to turn. If I don't say anything, just keep driving or follow the road. Keep up with the speed limit. Okay, we're ready to start your test. Turning right. I think sometimes people are scared because of the image of a driving examiner. You're portrayed as hard, tough. But otherwise, sometimes if you try to set them at ease, even if you do, sometimes they fail, but you have to do a job. And it's the safety, when you think about it, you're thinking about the safety of the public and the safety of the person himself. At the first street, turn right, please. I'm presumed as tough. I'm serious. I guess I'm very serious on my test. I kid around before the test, after the test, but not during the test. That's about it.
So you're the tough one in this office?
Well, I'm presumed as tough. I even got a nickname.
What's your nickname?
No, I won't tell you. Stop, stop, stop. Stop. You're supposed to wait for that vehicle to make that right turn. Oh, she was going along fine until she failed to yield the right of way to northbound traffic on a left turn. I had to stop her, and as you saw that she, even after I told her to stop twice, she hesitated and I had to say stop again. That guy had a right turn signal on. Beside that, he's coming, he's making a right turn, he has the right of way. You have to give him the right of way. Anytime I have to stop you in the process of your test, you have failed your test, okay?
Of course, not everyone fails, but it's not unusual for someone who leaves the center with their license to merge into their first real traffic in weeks. In fact, the 12-lane expressway is just 150 yards from the center.
When it comes to passing your driver's test, I think that people should be put in a real-world situation out on the street. Too many people, I think, pass a driver's test a little bit too quickly and are sent out on the streets and on the highways. I think that's a mistake, okay? The driver's test should be more real life, and also they should certainly include in a facility some accident avoidance or skid control in the driver's test. It's too bad to find out about skid control when you need it.
It has its advantages and its disadvantages. I think if the person has never been on the highway, it's a disadvantage to take them just on a test route like this. But then it boils down to observation again. Because they have yield intersections, there are yield intersections here, and you're going to have to yield to get on and off the highway. There are controlled stops, places, and once you get off the highway, you're going to meet those. For people who are not ready for the road, it would be really detrimental to take them out on the road, you know, if they can't pass a test in here. Whenever I have somebody who claims that they don't know this area or anything like that, I say to them, what if you had gone to Ottawa, that you don't know Ottawa, and it was night? What would you do when you're driving? Wouldn't you be looking for signs and reading the signals around? To me, this test center is just like a city that you don't know. I think the general public, if they got out there and had to be tested, half of them would fail.
That's kind of scary, isn't it?
It is, but it's the truth.
I think the drivers of today are much worse than they were years ago. There's more traffic on the road, there are more elderly drivers, the baby boomers are coming along now with lots of kids in the car, and I feel that there's just too much traffic and not enough roads.
Oh, I think they're much better, yeah.
Why?
Well, there's a lot more driver's education courses, And so I believe that that's helping the drivers.
I think they're worse. A lot of reckless drivers out there that just hog the road.
The government says that this is all you need to be a safe driver. I'm Jim Kenzie, and next on Kenzie's Corner, I'm going to tell you why it's not enough.
Kenzie's Corner with Jim Kenzie.
I got a phone call from a reader the other day who wanted some advice on buying a car for his daughter. He said it has to have anti-lock brakes and it has to have an airbag. He was showing appropriate parental concern for his daughter's safety, but I told him that the best thing he could do for his daughter was to teach her how to drive. But she already has a license, he said, and I told him that having a license in this country has got nothing to do with knowing how to drive. Fortunately, we have in Canada a lot of advanced driver schools that teach you things like accident avoidance, skid recovery and control, things that you need to have to survive in today's driving environment. Some car companies like Porsche and Nissan even offer high-performance driving schools for cars like this one. Not only does that make their customers better drivers, it also allows them to enjoy the benefits that these cars can offer. So, sure, buy airbags, buy anti-lock brakes, they're wonderful devices, but they only last you as long as you keep that car. You've got to pay for them all over again for the next machine you buy. Advanced driver training, you take one time, and it's with you for life. This is Jim Kenzie for Motoring 90.
Next week on Motoring 90.
Motor racing is one of the areas where he doesn't need his hearing while he's on the track. Certainly he misses a few things at the drivers' meetings, so I go with him to make sure he understands the flags or the changes in the rules. But once he's on the track, he tells me he can hear the carts coming up behind. It may be the electrical noise in his hearing aid, I'm not sure, but he doesn't seem to suffer. Maybe it's a level playing field for him. Ben has also got another amazing talent, and whenever we go to a new track, he is able to get down to a very competitive time inside of the first 5 or 10 minutes out there. And I don't know whether that has something to do with natural balance, which again has to do with your ears, or whether it's just his competitive spirit, but I'm most appreciative of that. He can be competitive very quickly.
If you opt for the larger tyres, you'd be well advised to go for these running boards, because if you've got short legs like me, or wife and kids, climbing up into the cab is difficult without the running board. That's it for this edition of Motoring 90. This one coming to you from St. Thomas Dragway. You can probably hear me, so all I gotta say is see you next week for more of Motoring 90.
If you have any suggestions or questions, drop us a line at Motoring 90, 379 Danforth Avenue, Toronto, M4K 1P1. Motoring 90 is brought to you by Quaker State. The Big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.